For years and years, I've been giving the exact same advice when it comes to loudness. Just master your song at -14 LUFS or higher. And while that advice is still very much true, it also turns out to be quite limited. So let's talk about that. Now, let me first show you what is going on with loudness measurements. So let's say I've got a track here, and let's say we've got quite a dynamic track. We've got a track like this, like this, like this. We've got a peak here, like this, whatever. And what a loudness measurement now does, it looks at the whole track from the beginning to the end and basically creates an average number. So let's say for this track, this average number is -11 LUFS. Now the reason why an audio engineer wants to know this number is just to know how much they will be turned down on a streaming service. But what this number does is literally show us how loud something is, not how dynamic. And the thing is, while loudness and dynamic range seem to be very much attached to each other, when it comes to measuring it, these are two completely different things. Because the only thing that this LUFS measurement does is measuring how loud something is in the absolute form. So when I keep my volume control at the same level, the loudness measurement will just show us how loud a track is compared to another track. So if I play a track at -9 and then play this track at -11, the track of -9 will sound louder to my ears. But this can be super easily manipulated. I mean, what if I would just turn the overall volume within my DAW of the track down? So right now the track is over here and I'm turning it down like this. What is good to know is that nothing in this track has changed. I've only turned down the volume in my DAW. If I now do a new loudness measurement, it will end up at, I don't know, -14 LUFS. So that's interesting. I got my loudness measurement to spit out two different numbers without factually changing something in the track. I just turned it down a little bit. The dynamic range of the song, so basically the difference between this and this, so this part, that has never changed. So I'm getting a better score out of my loudness measurement, but I haven't changed my track. Let me show you this in practice. I have a track here, nothing special, just a rock version of Sandstorm by The Root. And if I do a LUFS measurement of this song, well, we first of all see we have a lot of true peak clipping. By the way, I didn't work on this track. This is just a royalty-free song. But more importantly, we see over here that we have a LUFS measurement of 8.6. And I can easily get this LUFS measurement down by just turning the volume down. So let's do -3 decibels here. So I'm not changing the dynamics, I'm not changing anything in the song, just -3 decibels. And if I do another run here, we indeed see that our LUFS value is lower. So yeah, we know about LUFS. I've been talking about it for ages. And while LUFS is a valuable number, we can't really get all the information out of it. We want to know more. At least I want to know more about my song. And one of the things that we can do is, for instance, compare this number with our highest peak. So obviously, let's draw another song here, which looks like, I don't know, this. In this second song, there are no obvious peaks or valleys. And if I would compare my loudness number here to the highest peak, which would be somewhere over here, the difference would be really, really small. So this song is less dynamic than this song. So if we first take our loudness and then compare that with our highest peak, we can say something about the dynamic range of our song. And what we are going to call this measurement is PLR, or peak to loudness ratio. PLR is really like a whole track measurement, just comparing the loudness against the highest peak of the track. It's basically the same type of measurement as we're doing with loudness over the whole track. And having this number already says more about the dynamic range of our song. Now the way to measure PLR is by using a plugin that supports it. And today we're using a dynameter because version 2 has been released a few weeks ago. And this one was still on my list to talk about. No, I'm not being sponsored by Meter Plugs, but I do have an affiliate link towards Dynameter through Plugin Boutique. It's in the description down below. We're going to talk about everything in Dynameter, but first we're going to talk about PLR. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run the full song through here, because only then we have a real value. So let's do that. By the way, it's quite annoying that we can't do this offline. Like, we still have to do this real time, and that's probably because of the way that VST works and the way that manufacturers do not want to figure out a better way of creating audio plugins. Like, we're using an ancient protocol here, but this is something for a different video. Actually, a video I've already made a long time ago. Yeah, anyway. So we've got a PLR of 9 here, and this is just a number. Like, this is a number to compare with other things. And we are going to compare it with this song. This is a completely different song. Like, if we look at it, it's a very dynamic song. It is way more peaky. And as we can see here, just as expected, our PLR of our rock song is 9. And our PLR of the Requiem... Sorry, I'm not native English. Of the dynamic song actually shows that it is more dynamic. Now, mind you, this is independent of the volume that we are playing this at. Like, I can turn this down or up or whatever. It will still show the same numbers here. That's the cool thing. However, we're not there yet. There is more that we can see. And the second thing is called PSR. I think you've already seen it in my yeah. PSR is a bit more complex. Or, well, the term is. Because PSR stands for peak to short term loudness ratio. So what we are doing here is we are doing a short-term loudness measurement. So what this is doing, it's basically measuring over the past 3 seconds what the average loudness was. So it's not measuring the whole song, only the past 3 seconds. And it's comparing this to the little peaks. So for instance, your snare drum or something, that can peak out of here. Like, let's say we have a snare drum in this song and it's peaking a little bit here. It's comparing our average with these peaks. If this is bigger, if these peaks would be bigger, the ratio would also be bigger. So we have a more dynamic song. If this is smaller, the ratio would also be smaller. So with this measurement, we're basically, it's more of a transient or, you know, short-term measurement of looking at like, okay, is there a lot of dynamic range in between the notes and everything in our song, or is everything compressed like hell? While the PLR ratio says more about like the total dynamic range of the song. So we've got our short-term measurement basically and our long-term measurement. I think what is best to do here is to just remember the S and the L here. The L basically stands for the whole song since the measurement has started. And the S stands for the short term of like, okay, this is what has been happening over the last 3 seconds. Now let's put this in practice. Dynameter shows 2 values of PSR. It shows us our minimum PSRs. Basically, what the value was at the lowest dynamic range, at the most compressed part, basically, or the least dynamic part, however you want to call it. It shows us that over here. So we know that in this song, there is a part where the PSR hit around 9. Now it also shows us our current PSR in this graph. It shows us this in the graph here. And this graph is a bit difficult to understand. But in classic mode, it's actually pretty simple. It gets wider when it's more dynamic, so wider dynamic range, and it gets smaller during a lower dynamic range. And you can see what the PSR is over here. These numbers will only start to mean something as soon as you start to work with such a plugin and start to get some experience for what the numbers are actually saying. So if I play back this song from the beginning, it first shows us a big spike because it takes 3 seconds before it has its average. There it is. And we can see here that it's actually very dynamic. And the funny thing is, it's actually more dynamic than what we said would be acceptable. So I set a PSR of 12 here because I'm working in the balanced preset. But I think for this song, we can go for wide. So now it's set at a PSR of 14. And you'll see that it's more within the boundaries. And this limit... And this limit is basically set at your goal, basically. Like, if you're going for a more limited and a compressed track, you can set the limits differently in Dynameter. So, as you can see, during this part, we are really wide in dynamic range. We can see this in the waveform as well. Like, it is very much going up and down. But if we now move on to this part here, this gets a lot less dynamic. Like, there's not a lot of movement here. And we can see that here. Like, we can see it getting narrower and narrower. This is probably also where our lowest PSR was. So this is a super nice way to show how dynamic your song is, and it's not being manipulated by the loudness of the song, basically. Does this make any sense at all? Like, are you following along? Am I explaining this right? I mean, I get it, but I don't know if you all get it. Now, there are a few party tricks that you can do with dynameter. First of all, because it's not level dependent, basically, because it always shows you the exact dynamics of your song by doing comparisons and everything, you can do some investigations. For instance, if you have a track that is too compressed, like you're thinking like, okay, maybe I should create some more headroom. I want to make this more dynamic. You can figure out if this compression actually happens in your master bus or if there's actually already a lot of compression happening in the mix. If the mix is already very cooked, basically. And you can do this by simply adding dynameter to the mix as well. And then you can compare the values. You can check how much your master bus is doing and how much is already happening in your mix. That's the first trick that you can do in here. Another trick you can do, and this is new for dynameter too, is you can put this thing in stereo mode, for instance. So in stereo mode, dynameter will show the left channel on the left side of this graph and the right channel on the right side. As you can see here, my left channel is a little bit louder than my right channel. If you're looking for like, hey, where's my dynamic range or where am I losing my dynamic range? You can do it like this. You can look at the stereo field. And of course, you can also do this in mid side. So mid on the left, side on the right. Or if you want to go completely bonkers, you can also go multi-band here. So we got our low, mid and high band here. So we can see that our high band and our low band are pretty much compressed here, but our mid band is actually pretty dynamic. We can set the crossover frequencies here, by the way, in the settings. And lastly, it has like a very professor stuff type of feature here, which is the peak aware. And what peak aware mode is for is basically for whenever you have sounds in your production that are very, very flat, basically, like certain synthesizer lines or whatever. If you want to have a better overview of if there is just a synth going on, and this is basically for whenever you are measuring without using your speakers, I think. But if you want to know if it's a synth or just, you know, over processing, you can use peak aware mode, and the graph will then pull to the right. So you can see here, like it's really on the right side here. If there's too much processing happening, and for instance, in this example of the choir thing, you will see that actually the graph pulls more to the left. So where it displays the graph shows you if it's the sound or the processing. This is, I think the processing behind this and the calculation behind this are actually very simple, but to me this really sounds like AI professor stuff. They should sell it as AI maybe, or maybe not. Anyway, when it comes to measuring things in audio, I think we should be careful to not obsess over it. Keep in mind that we're making music and the first thing that counts is how it sounds. I've heard a lot of very processed and compressed tracks that actually sound really cool. I've also heard the opposite, very compressed tracks that sound like shit. Meters like the dynameter are only going to be an aid whenever you want to learn something about dynamic range or whenever you are running into problems with the dynamics of your track. Again, don't obsess over these measurements. And with that being said, I want to end the video over here. Now, as I said, I'm not being sponsored by Meter Plugs, but I do work with affiliate links. There will be an affiliate link to Plugin Boutique in the description down below. If you want to buy dynameter or something else, you can use that link or the other links that are also in the description down below. And by purchasing through my link, a little bit of your payment gets kicked back to me as a commission. Another way to support me is by checking out my merch store, ygshop.com. You can get the vacuum tube t-shirt and a few other ones there. Or you can become a channel member. It starts at 99 cents per month, but there's also an early access tier and an exclusive content tier, which I'm going to link over here. Last way to support me and the whole YouTube platform is watching more videos. Link in instinct video over here. Thanks a lot for watching, keep pushing, and bye bye.